Hello, everybody. I wanted to talk to you about how I was scammed out of $1,200 this week in order to buy some Taylor Swift tickets. I have looked at tickets over and over, and they're just so crazy expensive that it didn't even make sense. I reached out to my friend who lives in Indianapolis, and I said, hey, if you have any friends who have tickets available, please let me know. And then a couple of days ago, I was sitting at lunch and the Facebook Messenger pops up. Hey girl, I got a friend who has either a couple or 4 tickets and to Taylor Swift. Are you interested? And I was like, yeah, of course I'm interested. From that point forward, she introduced me to her friend on Facebook, and then we started interacting. Throughout this next part of the story, I am going to give you guys the lessons that I learned in all this. The first thing is that as soon as the guy started texting me for payment for these tickets, immediately my spirit, I could feel my spirit rise up and say, this is not a good idea. There's something about this that feels funky. But my brain was operating in emotion and was like, okay, we've got to get this done. We're getting these tickets. I'm going to take my girl to this concert. And the crazy part about it is that I did things against my own will in this transaction. So even from the first time that he sent me a Facebook message, we had had no exchange, no money got exchanged. I knew that something was off. And so I just encourage you, if you ever have a feeling, especially when it comes to something that you're buying online, even if a friend refers you, trust your instinct. That is so important. And believe me, I got scammed, and I used to work in a bank for the fraud department helping people who got scammed. So I thought that I was like unscammable, and that just is not the case. He wanted me to pay him through Apple Pay, and the tickets were like $4.50 each, which is like a crazy deal. And so I didn't have Apple Pay set up, so I offered to pay through Zelle. And he didn't really like that, the fact that I wanted to use Zelle, because that meant that he had to give a name and a phone number, because that's what it shows you on the receipt, on the confirmation. So I got the name, which wasn't his name, and I got the phone number. So that is an alert. If someone is asking you to send a Zelle to a name that does not match the name of the person that you're interacting with to make whatever purchase you're gonna make, do not do it. That was another signal. And actually, in the middle of this conversation with this perpetrator, I reached out to my friend who connected us and said, are you sure this guy is legit? Because it seems scammy, it seems icky. And she said, no, I know him. I've known him for a while. He is a little eccentric, but this is totally legitimate. And I was like, okay. So against my own spirit, I continued to move through the transaction, and I paid him through Zelle. And I said, okay, I'm going to pay you half the money. Send me a ticket, and then I'll send you the other half. Seems reasonable, right? So I pay him for half, and you could tell looking back that he was getting a little frantic with that. And he was like, no, go ahead and pay me the full amount, and I've got your tickets ready. He actually screenshotted me a screenshot of the Ticketmaster where he had them transferred under my name. And the guy has everything. He's got my first name, my last name, and my email address, because he has to have that to transfer it to me on Ticketmaster. So this part was a little scary after the whole thing got over and I realized that I was scammed. Is the guy had my phone number, he had my email address, and he had my first and last name. And that was pretty revealing, pretty scary. So he agrees for me to pay him through Zelle. I pay him the $500. I ask him send me the ticket. And he was like, no, I'll just go ahead. I have it ready to go. I'll just you pay me the rest and I'll send you the 2 tickets. So I pay him the rest and my bank flags it. So now they're not going to let that second charge go through. So I have to call the bank. This is another huge red flag. When your bank is telling you this is probably fraud and your spirit is telling you it's probably fraud. But I didn't listen because I wanted those tickets. I wanted that memory with my daughter. And so I'm like, it's in the exact perfect place that he wants me to be, which is I want the tickets desperately for the experience. And I'm doing things that are irrational and only driven on emotion, which is exactly what these perpetrators want. They want you in urgent, they want you in emotion. So then he doesn't transfer me the tickets. I go through the bank, I tell him it's fine. They tell me they think it's a scam. I tell him to approve it anyway. He gets his $900 and then I'm like, okay, where's the tickets? And again, right then I was like, something's wrong here. So he sends me an email, which is a fake email that he supposedly got from Ticketmaster. And it said, we need $300 to make the name change. And I was like, oh, that is so suspicious. Well, I Googled it and the Google came back and said that sometimes these resellers do charge you a fee. And so he said, well, let's do it on Apple Pay this time because my Apple Pay had been activated. So he sent me the request for the Apple Pay and I paid him. So now he had the $900 for the tickets plus the $300 for the transfer fee. So I'm not getting the tickets. And this is like 5-10 minutes go by. And then just my heart is like pounding and I am just feeling sick over this whole thing because now I'm $1,200 into this thing. And he comes back and says, it's not $300 for both tickets. It's $300 for one, for each. And that's when I was like, oh, this is a scam. This guy is going to continue telling me that it's going to cost more and more for me to get these tickets. And I was like, you know what? I'm like, that's not what the email said. And I started questioning him. And I'm like, let's just get on the phone. Well, he didn't want to do that. He said, oh, my supervisor is over here watching me. And I was like, okay. It just all seemed a little bit too good to be true. So for you, if this seemed too good to be true, don't do it. If your spirit's rising up, don't do it. If the people at your bank or your bank is declining charges tell you this is probably fraud, it's probably fraud. But I just was so irrational in that moment, I wasn't thinking. So he's got the $1,200 and then my senses hit me and I'm like, this is a scam. And so I ended up just saying, you know what, if you're a friend of this girl who referred you, just, you know what, I'm done. I'm not going to pay you any more money. Just give me my money back. If you're a friend, you'll do that and it's all good. And guess what happens next? He blocked me. And in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh. Like the reality set in that I had just been scammed out of $1,200. And let me tell you, I was beside myself. It was horrible. It was a terrible feeling. And yes, it was a lot of money. And yes, I was very mad about that. But the worst part is that I wasn't going to get to take my daughter to go and see Taylor Swift. And I was also equally sad about that, since that's something that we've been dreaming of. And that's what these perpetrators do. They get you into this mindset that you're going to get something that's going to help you, or that you're going to make more money, or that you're going to get these tickets. And then he basically blocked the chat. He got off the chat. But then there was this chat over here where me and my friend had introduced us. And I went to that chat immediately and I was like, this is all a scam. And that's when my friend was like, oh my gosh, I'm digging into this Facebook. And I realized that this Facebook account was a duplicate account, or an impersonated account, a fake account that was set up in my friend's name. And the reason why she didn't notice that is because she has so many Facebook friends that maybe she just didn't realize, like, okay, I was already friends with that guy. So she became friends with him again, but it was a fake account. And so the more she looked into it, because when I told her that I had been scammed, she was horrified, feeling terrible that she had now set me up and connected me with this guy that scammed me out of $1,200. So my advice here is when you accept friend requests on Facebook, just know that if you don't know who those people are, they could be scamming your friends. And they're going after people when they set up those fake accounts and they set up those impersonation accounts. So just be aware when you accept a friend request on Facebook that it's a legitimate person, because it could put you in a situation, or it could put one of your other Facebook friends into a situation where unknowingly somebody's taking advantage of you. And so finally I realized that, again, this guy had all of my contact information. So I went on to Google and I Googled my phone number because he had my phone number. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, y'all, my addresses that I've ever lived in, my name, my date of birth, all my relatives, like all of that popped up. So all this guy had to do was search my phone number and everything was there. So what you want to do is you want to go to Google your own name, and they are websites like Truth Finder and Fact Finder, I think, but I don't remember what the F name is. But if you Google your own phone number, it will bring back all of this crazy data that is supposedly public, and somehow these services have the right to like aggregate all this data. And I'm going to tell you right now, I went through, and my husband went through, and my daughter went through a way to actually remove and suppress that data from being able to be found. So if you have ever been a victim of a scam, I highly encourage you, go out there and make sure that your data is suppressed. And even if you haven't been a victim of a scam, I mean, it's a good idea not to have all of that personal identification information on the internet. And with that, also, I went back to check this morning, and it brought back another one of my relatives, my mother-in-law, who also had all of my phone numbers and dates of birth and previous addresses that they were all associated with her now. So now I have to get her to go and take that down. The only way really I filed a fraud claim with the bank for my cash from Apple Pay. And I filed a fraud claim with Zelle, and pretty much once you exchange Zelle, it's cash, pretty much. It's a cash, it's instantly available, and there's pretty much not going to get that back. But one thing is that if you go onto the Zelle website, you can actually file a complaint with the FBI, and you give them all of your evidence, all your screenshots, and then they will go and investigate. Because the part about Zelle is they actually have to have a legitimate checking account that is included on that transfer with a legitimate name and a legitimate phone number, which I feel like scammers have ways to get around all this stuff that I'm just not aware of. But I can promise you that there's ways that they can trace all of this stuff back to a real person. So that's what I would highly recommend. All of these different things that go along with the story that I've just told you, just take it to heart. And if it doesn't feel right, don't do it. So I hope this helped you, and you got something out of it. And if you have any questions, please post them below, and I'm happy to answer them. I'll be happy to include in the description the different websites that I went to, how I opted out of my information being shared by suppressing it, and I'll give you guys all of those instructions as well. So I hope this helped, and have an amazing day.